ask me a question then. If you want me to talk, I can answer.
What's your name?
Grandma Jeane.
How old are you going to be in February?
90. What, you getting ready to write my obituary?
Oh, Mother.
Jeane Trevort Lundholm. February the 5th, 1920. Every time you go to a hospital or anything, that's your number. That's how they register that. Your birthday. John, let's see. Clyde Franklin and Hattie Wright Trevort. 4 brothers and 4 sisters I had. I don't have that many now. Let's see. The brothers are Gordon, Franklin, Paul, Lauren, Paul, and Louis Grant. They all had 2 names. My sister Marilyn and I are the only ones that got cheated. We only got 1. Well, we didn't have any problems. My dad had to go away to work or lose the farm, but we didn't have any problems as far as eating because we had raised our own meat, we raised our own fruit and vegetables, we had orchards, we had garden, we had turkeys and chickens and pigs and beef and we had sheep, but I wouldn't eat sheep because they always kill my baby lamb. Oh, that canal.
Yeah.
We almost lost Gordon in that. Well, in the spring, it was full of weeds and stuff and hadn't been cleaned out. And so we went over and were playing in the canal. And my brother Gordon must have been about 2, about like Cora. And so there was a fence and we had to walk up around the fence because they fenced it up part way so we wouldn't go get in the canal. And we were there playing, and so we decided we had to go, and so Gordon wouldn't get out. So Dorothy got up on the little bridge, and I lifted, and she pulled him out, and we walked about 10 feet, and here come this great big flood of water coming down, just tumbling tumbleweeds in front of it. We went home and told our mother, and we couldn't figure out why she didn't get excited when we told her. She probably almost ready to die to know that we hadn't been playing in the canal, just barely got out in time. Oh, I used to go out and work for women. They didn't go to the hospital to have babies, they'd have them at home. And then they'd have to hire somebody to come in because they had to stay in bed 10 days. They didn't get up walking. And so then they'd have to hire somebody to come in and take care of the kids and do the cooking and do the washing and everything. And I used to get paid to walk from where my mother lived, clear down in Spring Lake to help all these women that were having babies. Got a whole quarter a day, and I had to walk early in the morning and stay all day and do all the work and feed the kids and wash the clothes. And I got a job right afterwards over working in Geneva. There weren't hardly any men. The men were all older, and there were any of them around. All of them but past the physical were drafted. And we on Sundays we take kerosene or some kind of stuff and clean all the big rollers, all the grease that was off of them, and dry them and clean them up with the rags, and we run the wheelbarrows and haul steel shavings, and the men would sit and watch us. We were just like 23 and 24. We were ambitious. We worked. That's when I said I didn't want to be a hooker. And everybody laughed when I said I didn't like to be a hooker. Because the hooker, there was 4 hooks that come down from a crane. And they come and they carried this hot steel. There was 2 on each side. And then they put them down on the scales and weighed the thing. And they had to lift the hooks and pull them up while they weighed the steel. Then they'd drop them back down, and then they'd take them and lay him somewhere to cool off. So I unhooked my hooks and went over and started over towards this pile of cold steel. And something yelled at me and said, "Jump." So I jumped, and there this hot steel went driving right up, slid right under my feet, went that far under a big pile of, about a 10-foot pile of steel, cold steel. And I climbed up the cold steel. I had gloves on, and I climbed up the cold steel and was sitting on the top. And I said, "Who said jump?" And nobody said jump. So I don't know who said jump, but I jumped, and all I got was I had a burn on my coveralls and had a big blister on my butt. I had a little coupe. I think it was a Shiv coupe. It was a little coupe. And these girls come and asked me if I'd take them to Santaquin. So we up to a place, and they went in to get a drink. And I sat there visiting with them, and there was this man that was sitting over to the over to the bar, drinking, having something to eat. He said, I guess he had a drink or something, I don't know, but he was sitting over there, and somebody said, "That woman used to be married to Shell. Shell was the alcoholic." And so he come over and met me, and one of the girls I was with was married, but she went out with him, and no, I have a dress hanging in the closet that he decided that's when he looked at, she's the one for me, and so it might fit me now. So I wasn't quite 32. We got married and had our honeymoon out at Warm Springs. No, we got Randy and Jerry first. And he was working on the sewer, and this one man told him about that they had these two little boys that was up for adoption, and they were down in Arizona. And so this lady, it was Vaughn Lee, the lady that she adopted Vaughn Lee, I think. But anyway, she had just gotten Vaughn Lee, and so she went with us. We went down to Arizona and got Randy from his mother, and Jerry from his mother and dad. Well, her aunt had brought her from South Dakota, and her aunt was drinking heavy, and so the court took her away. We adopted her, but we hadn't had her too long before we could adopt her. She was in a hospital, and she had an aunt that was supposed to be tending her. The aunt ran away, and she got up in Lehigh, and the police found her, and she didn't know where she was. She didn't know where she was going. She was trying to find her family, and they left her down there alone with this baby. And so they went down and took her back to this place, and they found the baby, and the baby was almost dead. Skin was all broken out, and she was just really sick. So they took her and put her in the hospital, and when she got ready to go home from the hospital, they called the welfare and said, "You've got to take this child. If these people are drinking like they are, take her, she'll die." So they brought her to us, and we kept her from October. I guess it was September, because it was Randy's birthday when they brought her. Kept her from September till Christmas, and all of a sudden they come and said, "The court's taken the baby away from her parents. You can adopt her." And here it was Christmas, and we hadn't bought anything for Christmas for our kids. But anyhow, we had Gloria just before that. We got her about a month before we got your mom. We thought, it said when we got her, they said that she was born in December of 55. And I said, here, they brought her to us in September. I said, that child couldn't even sit up yet. She definitely could not have been 9 months old. And so the welfare, we've tried to get a birth certificate, and we couldn't locate her parents or get anything, get a birth certificate. So the welfare signed a little thing that said that she was probably born in March of the 20th of 1956. And I thought, oh, that's a terrible time to have birthday parties. So I changed the R. They just put M-A-R, so I changed the R to Y, and we went up to Salt Lake to the state capitol. But it was a funny thing. Jerry said to me, when we got her, he said, "She's my baby, you're my baby, I'm your baby, and she's my baby." And he named her. He said, I said, oh, she reminds me of a picture. I'd seen a baby picture. I said, she looks like Rosemary Bates did when she was a baby. And Jerry decided that was her name, was Rosemary. I told you what Jerry and Milch Jenkins called her, didn't I? Catfish. Her name was Verl Catney. And I didn't think Verl was a very good name for a girl. But her cat. And so Jerry and his friends got the biggest kick out of calling your mother Catfish. The first one was Randy. September the 4th, I think the 4th. So there's a September the 11th, is somebody's birthday, and there's September the 4th, but I think he was killed September the 4th, 1970. Out in Plains Swamp, Montana, and cleaning up after fire. They just went and cleaned out little fires, but they have a thing that's called a snag. They're a dead tree, and sometimes he'll just all of a sudden come down, and they yell. He had a helmet on, and they yelled, and he looked up, but he couldn't move fast enough, and it hit him through his skull, and like that in his hip, right through his hip and his skull, even with a hard hat. And this man came and knocked on the door, and he had a uniform on. He was a forest ranger, and he wanted to talk to my husband, and I said, he's not here. He's at work. Well, what time do you get off? And I said, midnight. So then he said, can I come in and talk to you? So he came in and told me that Randy had been killed. And then we had to get Clyde Jasperson took us over to get your grandpa. I phoned Clyde, told him about that Randy had been killed, and so then he phoned his work, because they both worked at pipe plant, and asked the people, the guy there, his boss, to get somebody to go out and take your grandpa's place, because he was going to have to go home because his son had been killed. And so that night I was ironing, and here come the news on the news that he'd been killed. They'd phoned my sister in Salt Lake. The hospital here had phoned her up there where she worked in Salt Lake, and told her how bad my father was doing. And so she phoned me. I just got home from having the permit, and told me I'd better get down to the hospital, because Mom was sitting in the hospital with my dad, and he was in intensive care, and the hospital in Salt Lake didn't think the way it sounded like he was going to make it. So I went down in all my uniform, ready to go to work, and I went into the nurse, and I said, my father's in intensive care, and my mother's out in the waiting room, and I will come to work later, but I'm not going to come to work until after my sister gets here from Salt Lake to stay with her. And then Marilyn came and we sat with her, and finally the doctor came out and said to my mother, I keep having to, they had to give him a jolt, again. He said, I've done it and done it and done it. I can't keep doing this to him. It's too hard. Can we let him go? And my mother said, yes, we can let him go. This doctor that attacked my mother's lungs come in and said, oh, I hate to tell you this, especially since your dad just died, but she's got cancer and it's metastasis. It's cancer in her lungs, it's metastasis. That means it's all over her body. My sister had it all arranged. She phoned in the Salt Lake Hospital where she worked, had it all arranged for my mother to go in the next day and have tests, and took her up there to the specialist. But every time I take my mother up to the hospital to have these checks that she's supposed to have all the time, my sister would say to me, well, how's Dale doing? How's Dale doing? And I'd say, well, he's lost another so many pounds. Gosh, he was bigger than Jim, and here he got so skinny. So when we were talking to the doctor said to me, is your husband a veteran? And I said, yes. He said, I'm over the cancer patients at the Veterans Hospital. Now you go home and sit your husband and go to the doctor. And then you find out what they say. He's going to have an x-ray. And then you have him called in. Then you come into Salt Lake with me, and I'll have it all set up so he can be admitted. He had cancer too. She died on the 22nd of October, and he died the 22nd of February. And I had to bring my mother here, and she slept in a bed right there in the corner. For the last week she was alive because my husband couldn't be left alone anymore, and I'd been staying with my mother, so. But they died 4 months to the day apart. And the cancer is a mean sickness. Jerry, he was working.
77.
He'd go to work about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he'd work and come home about 3 o'clock in the morning and go to bed. He's got payday every Friday night, so Saturday morning, here at 9 o'clock, he got home at 3 o'clock, went to bed. Here was them honking and carrying on and coming getting Jerry. Come on, Jerry, let's go. They took him out and spent his money every week. They didn't work. He did, but they didn't. But anyway, he had a car and he had all this stuff. But anyhow, I was sleeping on the couch. I kept thinking something was going to happen to him. I saw the ambulance going down the street to the west because the accident was out by the church. And no sense you going to bed, Jeremy's been killed. So I just sit there and they turned off the light. An hour later, they come and knock on the door and wouldn't tell me that my son, Jerry, had been killed. Well, no, I mean, I opened the door and told him I know. I had the 4 kids we had to raise them. And of course, all the other foster children we had. That was the biggest accomplishment, was to have a family. And to go to the temple and have 4 of them sealed to us. I think we had about 10 kids off and on during the foster child thing. Pray. I can't get down on my knees anymore, and I feel guilty about it because I can't get back up. Oh, but sure, I've read my testimony. I know the gospel's true. Can't help but know it. I've had too many things in my life to let me know it. And I did some things I shouldn't have done in my life, but I never ever lost my testimony. I always knew it was true. I was raised by people that were good members of the church, and they were good examples to me. And I think these kids, most of you have all turned out good. I think deep down in Gloria did. And I know that Heavenly Father gave him these children so that, well, I guess that's why Grandpa couldn't have any children and I didn't have any children, was because the Lord had these others for us to raise. And I don't get up and can't say all the things I want to say, but I'm really thankful that I belong to this church. And I didn't think I was going to live past 80. I didn't think I was going to live to be 80. My mother's mother was 76 when she died, and everybody else that died was younger than her. So I thought I would die before I got to be 80, but I didn't. Yes, I'm too mean. Yeah. You don't feel older, your body gets older and you can't do things with it, but your spirit doesn't get feeling old. Well, I don't want to die right now. No, when you kind of got mixed feelings.